My boy lollipop, you make my heart go giddy up. You are a sweet task cat.
Greetings from Castle Goring, from Mickey, Aurora, and from me. Well, it's certainly been an eventful few days with very important developments. We, of course, have our bits of gossip and trivia and sort of lightweight, interesting, nevertheless, stuff. But we also have some really important matters to address. So without further ado, I am going to plunge right in with PQR, who says, Lady C, I see Kevin Spacey has been acquitted. I'm a fan. I'd be interested in your take on his case. Also, do you personally know of any other high-profile grandees the public don't know about who've been accused by money grabbers and how they resolved their problems? We seem to live in a world where it's really dangerous to be rich. Well, it's dangerous to be poor as well. But I get your point. I am delighted to see that Kevin Spacey was acquitted. I would imagine that pretty much everybody knows that he was tried for, shall we say, over-familiarity. And it's quite amazing to me. Yes, Aurora. Yes. It's quite amazing to me nowadays how what in my day was a triviality is now not only actionable, but imprisonable, and also an incentive for people to make an awful lot of money. There were 4 accusers. Kevin Spacey's case was they were all after money. And the jury agreed with him. I'll tell you, yes, I do know of other cases involving not only men of Kevin Spacey's persuasion, but older men and young men. I am very familiar with 2 separate cases. One involving an older man who was utterly innocent and was being stitched up. I actually think there should be a criminal offence that people who make these accusations, when they turn out to have been unfounded, that they should actually be charged with the crime of perverting the course of justice. Because I know of another case, a young man who was accused of, I suppose, one of the worst things you can accuse anybody of. Not the worst, but one of the worst. If you get my drift, this is YouTube. We're speaking about adults. And it was about money. There was also an incident here at Castle Goring where my son had, this is several years ago, my son Dima had a music festival here. And I woke up at about 5 or 6 o'clock in the morning to see the police downstairs. I saw, when I looked out of my bedroom window, police crawling everywhere. So I went downstairs with the dogs, or the dog. I don't remember exactly when it was, so I don't remember if I only had Mickey, or I think I only had Mickey actually. I think Totty was already dead. And I went down and I saw that a tablecloth, a really rather nice tablecloth, was on the ground. So I went to pick it up. And somebody shouted at me, "Don't touch that." So I looked up and saw a policeman in the distance. I said, "Who are you and what are you doing here?" He says, "This is a crime scene." And anyway, they were quite officious at first, but they actually then became rather more civilized. And we were told a cock and bull story about an accusation that some girl had made against some guy. Turns out somebody she fancied. And when we investigated, it turned out that she had slipped to the other side of the castle with the young man and was caught by one of the security guards on her knees while he was standing up. And of course, they were promptly moved on back to the party. She gets home, and obviously the boyfriend must have said something to her. And she cried the 4-letter word beginning with R. You know, the AP word. So the police were here combing the place for evidence. And when they told us the story, we said, "Excuse me, that doesn't make sense." First of all, the floodlights shine on where he is supposed to have done the dirty deed. Secondly, this story doesn't make sense. It's a floodlit area. It's on the side of the castle, but the floodlights shine directly onto it. Anyway, to cut a long story short, she had obviously retired to the bushes with the object of her ardour. And when she got home, and the boyfriend would have noticed that she was in a state of déshabillé, out came the accusation. And I was spitting mad because the police, even though we had pointed out to them that the story could not be true, commended her for her bravery in coming forward to the press. Then, of course, they had to drop it. Well, that is, I mention that case for a good reason. And the reason is that you don't have to have money for somebody to cry wolf. However, I know of another case involving another young man where the girl cried wolf because he is from a well-off family and she had ambitions financially. Very rude, very naughty, very disgusting. Well, in both instances, with both young men, the police quickly realized that it was a non-starter, and they dropped all investigations once they found out that it was a nonsense. But regrettably, when money is involved. But it's not only money, I have to say. It's also, people have the incentive to have drama and attention and to dine out for years afterwards about what victims they have been. And as if they can attach a grand name, whether it be Castle Goring or the name of an heir, or even no name of any consequence, but a glamorous situation. And even without a glamorous situation, they are incentivized. I mean, it's unbelievable to make false accusations. Because you see, if the person is found guilty and the accused has money, they can go after them financially. And if they don't have money, the victim, in quotes, can apply to the Criminal Compensation Board. The whole thing is disgusting. Of course, people who do this is YouTube, so people who breach others' personal boundaries in an untoward manner should pay the price. But why should the innocent pay the price for the greedy? So I hope that answers the question. Jenny Blackmore says, Lady C, you looked marvellous today in all white, like a snow queen. Thank you very much. It is surfacing now that H&M are going around looking at schools for Archie. The state schools they have applied to have turned A down due to discrepancies in the birth certificate that M gave them and her refusal to provide health immunization records as part of the application. They are now seeking out private institutions. Have you heard anything about this? And there's another question along similar lines, so I'm going to ask that I answer both at the same time. So I'll read out what Linda Harry says. Is it true she changed her name on Archie's birth certificate to HRH, Duchess of Sussex? Okay. All schools require certain records, private as well as public schools. So any failure by any parent to provide the records can result in the parent's child not being accepted by the school, quite rightly. There are difficulties with Archie's birth certificate. I'm going to be very careful what I say. In fact, I'm going to read out what Sonia Bodgers says, and then I'm going to answer everything in one lump. Another YouTuber made an interesting point. Archie's original birth certificate, lodged by the dimwit himself, stated the mother was Rachel Meghan. 11 days later, that was changed to the Duchess of Sussex. That means if Dimwit marries again, his new wife will be the Duchess of Sussex and hence become Archie's mother. Not quite, but I'll explain that in a second. Let me read the question. It appears that the mattress is refusing to hand over Archie's original birth certificate to the school he will need to attend next year. She told the school that the original birth certificate is sealed by the palace for security reasons, something extremely sus about the entire birth issues for both children. Okay, let me answer everything in one fell swoop, if I may. First of all, just because the child's name, mother's name on the birth certificate is Duchess of Sussex, doesn't mean that any subsequent Duchess of Sussex automatically becomes that child's mother. It doesn't. I mean, Johnny Kimberley, the Earl of Kimberley, he's dead now, was married, I think, 6 times. I mean, there were countesses of Kimberley floating around like grains of sand on a beach. And no one wife thought that the other wife's children were theirs. So no, Meghan Markle is not in danger from, I'm choosing my words very carefully, Meghan Markle is not endangered by any subsequent Duchess of Sussex being entitled to say that she is Archie's mother. However, 11 days after the birth was registered by Harry, there was a name change made. Meghan claims that the palace forced her to make the change. The palace says that they had nothing to do with it, and that any change that was made extraneous of them, their knowledge, their influence. Everybody has the wrong end of this stick. Sorry. I think it's the Mirror and the Daily Record, having the last few days returned to the issue of this amendment to the birth certificate. So people are sniffing around. I smell something. Wonder what it is. Or, I know what it is, I'd better go. So everybody knows that my olfactory glands are working perfectly. Well, the Christian names Meghan, Rachel Meghan, were removed from the birth certificate. But Her Royal Highness the Duchess of Sussex did not replace those 2 removals. Her Royal Highness the Duchess of Sussex had always been on the birth certificate. And if Meghan is telling the school that Archie's original birth certificate is sealed by the palace for security reasons, that is impossible. Not impossible that she said it, but impossible as an acceptable scenario, for the simple reason that birth certificates are a matter of public record. I have a copy of Meghan Markle's record insofar as it applies to Archie's birth. Let's put it that way. I've had sight of both the original and the amended versions. I suspect pretty much anyone can have sight of them. I could be wrong there, but the fact of the matter is, in the original birth certificate, it says Christian names of the mother. I think it says given names, but anyway, first names, whatever. I don't remember exactly. But her Christian names are Rachel Meghan. Her surname is Her Royal Highness the Duchess of Sussex. Her profession is Princess of the United Kingdom. The important point in all of this is that when Rachel Meghan's names were removed from the birth certificate by an amendment, it specified as a result of the removal that Rachel Meghan, the Duchess of Sussex, was no longer identified as the child's mother. The person who was identified as the child's mother remained Her Royal Highness the Duchess of Sussex. Anomalous? Possibly. Not to me. I know the significance of it all. I do not think this is the forum, as I have said before, to go into all my knowledge. Let's put it that way. I hope that explains the whole fishy caboodle. Smell something, wonder what it is. Leonest Germain says, Dear Lady C, when you started saying a few years ago that Meghan and Harry were a menace for free speech, I have to admit I was very skeptical, but you were totally right. I don't use my words lightly ever. I have studied intensively about Hitler and Nazism. I never thought I would live through the birth of another dictatorship. Very worrying. Thank you for raising the subject matter so well. Greetings from Canada. Well, there are certainly attempts being made to steer the Western world in a more totalitarian and authoritarian direction. Or maybe I should rephrase that. An authoritarian direction with the face of a democratic structure, but in reality, an authoritarian directorship, which is tantamount to covert dictatorship. I am firmly of the belief that the only reason why Meghan and Harry have embarked upon the course they have embarked upon is because they want to keep private matters that would be embarrassing and possibly damaging to them if they were verified publicly. They are a menace to free speech, without a doubt. They are trying to shut down free speech actively. They have joined organizations whose aim and objective is to corral the sheep into various pens and prevent the sheep from maying in the field. They are a danger to free speech. And I'm glad people are waking up to that fact. You know, I'm extremely dispassionate and extremely measured in my conclusions and my viewpoints. Just because I have the knack or the curse or the privilege, however you want to look at it, to have been aware of things and to be at the vanguard as opposed to being one of the followers. So I have seen and been informed of, and quite frankly, have thought it was my duty to reveal what I knew, especially when it was a danger to others. And sometimes some of the things I am made privy to astonish me. And I think, wow. And until I can stand them up irrefutably, I'm not keen to stick my neck out. I have only one neck, and it's rather slender, as I think it was the Italian princess said when she was approached to marry Henry VIII and pointed out, I have only one neck, it's rather slender. It will fall off very easily. I prefer not to endanger its existence. I feel like that. So they are a danger to free speech. They have set out to muzzle not only the mainstream media, but all of social media as well, that doesn't agree with what they want you and me to say. Michelle Vale says, so we have the interconnections of the interconnections. Sunshine Sachs, the Democrats, and B Corp. May I interject at this point and point out there are also Republicans involved. But fewer. Are they all tentacles of the same octopus? They certainly are. It's called power. It's called control. Or octopi connected in and of themselves. Absolutely. Hence why you have people from both sides of the political divide involved. In England, you have conservatives, and you have liberal Democrats, and you have Labour. In the United States, you have Democrats and you have Republicans. Ironically enough, in the United States, the Democrats are represented far more strongly than the Republicans. In Britain, it's the absolute opposite. The Tories are represented more than Labour followers. So you would imagine that the Labour, which would be more leftist, would be more strongly represented. But no, because they don't have the money. This is about money. This is about control. This is about the power of money. This is about money. M-U-N-N-I-E. If I can make a light of the situation. So, to continue. And Harry has inserted himself into the thick of it. He certainly has. Consider the Aspen Institute, where Harry can chummy up to executives of YouTube. Well, I like YouTube, but I hear what you say about YouTube. Consider the YouTube channels critical of Harry and Meghan that were taken down and or demonetized. Coincidence? Well, those that we're not going to go into, because those that have survived, that are critical of Harry and Meghan, are still allowed to flourish. So I think we need to bear that in mind. I'm not saying that other channels have not been shut down, but I'm just trying to put things in their proper context. Coincidence? My dear, as Freud said, there's no such thing as a coincidence. Think I'll take a few questions to my local MP about B Corp or B Corp, whatever. I would imagine it's B Corp. Please do. Please do. So sad and disturbing when one discovers that one is naive and clueless. Thank you, Lady C, for bringing that information to our attention. My pleasure. I'm going to read out something to you that was sent to me by my friendly, well-placed, genius guy in the accounting world, referring to the Farage Rose Coutts scandal. This has all come about because European Union money laundering rules designed to catch Italian, Spanish, Bulgarian and Romanian politicians stealing EU money have been entwined with ESG guidelines and internal rules, which in turn have been infiltrated into companies by an immensely sinister organization called B Corp, also known as B Lab. This sinister organization rewrote the internal constitution of Coutts and NatWest under the enthusiastic cheerleading of Alison Rose. The result was the wokeristas inside NatWest and Coutts got rid of Nigel Farage. If you look carefully at the report Nigel Farage has made public, you will see that it is a compilation of extracts from Google rewritten by a junior Coutts employee shelf stacker. The report is appallingly written, but it comes directly, in big block capitals, from a combined money laundering and ESG checklist and tick box exercise, which trolls Google, for adverse comments on clients, customers, etc. This has been wokeried in order to eject an account holder whom Rose and the other wokeristas in NatWest disliked. This is facilitated by B Corp rules and procedures imposed on Coutts and NatWest and 1,200 other UK companies, partnerships and charities. Simply check out the PDF document on B Corp UK website under legal requirements and you will find, quoted with joyful enthusiasm, the revolutionary cries of Greta Thunberg, demanding that all our current laws and rules should be smashed and new ones devised according to her tastes and diktats are being imposed on everyone. Dame Alison Rose and Coutts, the beating of wokerista capitalism. Well, I think that pretty much says it all. Because B Corp is a private company that publicly listed companies in this country are surrendering control to. It is outrageous. This is a total violation of the rights of shareholders. The problem is that in many large companies, the major shareholders are other large companies, many of whom have signed up to or have sympathies with the objectives of B Corp, which are to acquire power under the pretense of standing up for improved business practices. Lady C, Primrose says, Lady C, is not Harry involved with these people? I seem to recall that Harry and Meghan visited Stanford right after they moved here, the USA. I know that he is involved with the Aspen Institute. Yes, they did. Just as how I know many people in the royal and aristocratic world, they know people in that world, not the royal and aristocratic world, the financial world, because the financial world is of absorbing interest to people who want to make money. Meghan wants to make a lot of money. Harry had no interest in making money before Meghan. I Spy says, looks like Alison Rose has fallen on her sword, albeit she had to be pushed. She was pushed onto that sword. Poor baby girl, can you imagine having to forego 5.2 million per annum just because she was caught lying and betraying the trust and failing to abide by her fiduciary duty and violating client confidentiality? I mean, how unreasonable is it? Because, after all, she's wonderful. She's woke. The whole board of NatWest have to go, and the banking sector needs a major overhaul. In my opinion, the content from you today, Lady C, is a very important, if not one of the most important discussions on the ESG, censorship, free speech, and democracy within the UK at the moment. I also think Farage is very brave because he is taking on the global cabal, but thank God for him and I support him all the way. On a lighter note, I'm loving the headbands and it inspired me to invest in a couple. God bless you, Lady C. Thank you. Glad you like the headbands. So do I. They're very practical and very easy. You just put them on and your hair stays in place. So, to get back to the more serious matter. Nigel Farage is brave. Alison Rose made a series of serious judgment errors, chief of which was to push her hand in the lion's mouth and think it wasn't going to bite her. Why did she do it? To disgrace him, to demean him, to diminish him. But she is out of a job as a result of it. And I am pleased to have been one of the people to have called for her resignation. Her conduct was outrageous. It was a total violation of clan confidentiality and abuse of every single process of professional ethics and civility that I can think of. As for the rest of the board, I don't know who they are. Nigel Farage has said if they voted to support her, they should all stand down. Well, how practical it is for everybody on the board to stand down is a moot point, but considering that 38% of NatWest is owned by taxpayers in this country, I think if the board members are not replaced, they need to undertake to keep their noses out of politics, to hereafter undertake to respect the rights of people who have different political views from theirs and different any other sorts of views from theirs. As long as you are not guilty of a crime, and only certain crimes in any event should prevent you from having a bank account. A bank account, as I have said recently, in today's world is a human right. Alison Rose has had to resign. She should have resigned. Nigel being brave? I suspect Nigel is rather like me. Don't trouble trouble till trouble troubles you. And when trouble troubles you, make sure it knows that right will prevail over wrong. And MN8NY says, and this is really important, Richard Werner, spelled Werner, a German banking economist. He's a brilliant man, incidentally. I would recommend that everybody listen to what he has to say. He is a genius. He is the creator of quantitative easing. He was the Japanese government's economic advisor for several years. He is one of the respected and revered figures in the banking and economic world. I make that point, so I will now start over again. Richard Werner, a German banking economist, was selected as a top 100 Global Leaders for Tomorrow by the World Economic Forum in Davos in 2003. He recently warned central bank digital currency, CBDC, that will initially be accessed with a phone, but ultimately the goal is to implant a rice-sized chip under the skin of its users, which the aim is everybody, according to him, and I see no reason to dispute somebody of that eminence's authority. He said that people will be lured into the system with universal basic income, UBI. He recommended that banks should be set up locally and that it could delay or even prevent the introduction of CBDCs. Yes, they're called community banks. And you need £5 million in this country to start a community bank. And I'm interjecting, but I'll return to the question in a second. I'm just going to make the point while I'm reading this out. There's also the Bank of Dave, which is worth looking into because the Bank of Dave was started by Dave. And it's a wonderful bank. It's really a version of a community bank. And he wanted to open them up everywhere and not been able to. But anyway, loads of small banks, local banks, community banks are the key to economic prosperity and independence. And Professor Werner, who is German, has made the point that one of Germany's great secrets is the plethora of local banks that it had. Of course, the German government is trying to whittle them down. But anyway, if I may, I will now continue with the question. He said, I'm going to repeat the last bit. He said that people will be lured into the system with universal basic income. He recommended that banks should be set up locally and that it could delay or even prevent the introduction of CBDCs. The Bank for International Settlements published a report called The Blueprint for the Future Monetary System that proposes that a CBDC will serve as the new reserve currency and calls for the confiscation of all physical property. Every real world item will be assigned its own unique digital token that will contain rules on how each item may or may not be used, so that each person can be controlled directly by the central bank. Source: G. Edward Griffiths, Need to Know newsletter. Griffins, not Griffiths. Griffins wrote the classic book Creatures from Jekyll Island, explaining to the public how the money creation system really works and controls our governments and therefore us. I have read this out because to those of you who are interested in our future, your future and my future, I would recommend that you Google Professor Richard Werner, spelled Werner, Werner. Listen to what he has to say. He's not a conspiracy theorist. He's not a lunatic. And one of my sons is in the financial world, my son Dima. And he is a strong believer in digital currencies and thinks this is the way of the future. It's shorn of all political aspect where he's concerned. It's a purely economic and financial thing. But he feels that digital currency is effectively going to end up being the substitute, if I'm not mistaken, I hope I'm not misquoting him, of paper money and coins, which of course were an invention as well, because prior to coins and paper money, there were gold coins and silver coins, and that was what it was worth. Brass coins, nickel coins, and paper money are concepts of value that are agreed by everyone. So £5 is £5, an agreed reality that is notional, because it's not really a reality at all. I mean, the £5 note is worth it because you and I say it's worth it, and everybody else agrees it's worth it. But you can't take that £5 note and do what you could have done with a gold coin or a silver coin, which was £5 worth of gold or £5 worth of silver, and you wanted to melt it down and make it into a pair of earrings. It was still worth £5, maybe even a little bit more because of the work involved. Well, I'm afraid you can't melt down paper money, and nickel and brass have absolutely no value in terms of corresponding value in terms of a financial exchange. So we can be aware of what is going on, and it's up to us to be guardians of our civil liberties. They didn't come out of nowhere. They didn't drop like manna from heaven. They were hard earned by our ancestors over a period of centuries. And we, the people, need to be vociferous. I mean, do you know why Alison Rose was made to resign? Because Rishi Sunak and the Chancellor of the Exchequer expressed no faith in her continuing function as the CEO of NatWest. Why do you think they came out so strongly? Possibly totally for ethical reasons. I'm cynical. I think they also thought, the public don't like this because everybody, left, right and centre, have backed Nigel Farage. The Guardian newspaper, which is a study in leftism and wokeism, it backed Nigel Farage. Everybody has backed Nigel Farage because everybody has seen the danger. The danger still exists. The danger of a purely digitalized economy also will exist as long as the concept of digitalization and the lure and the attraction to politicians of digitalization exists. We need to have money in circulation. We need to be able to have means of exchange that are are beyond the ken of any government. Otherwise, the government can simply turn you off. They do it in China, and don't think they wouldn't do it here. That's the object of the exercise. Look at how Dame Alison Rose on 5.2 million. So she's a capitalist. But then I've got news for you. The Chinese government is also a capitalist government. It's politically communistic, but it's economically capitalistic. So it has a really weird system. But if you do not go along with the fiction that totalitarian state is communist, when in fact it's capitalist, but a dictatorship, a totalitarian state. And if you don't go along with that fiction and you try to rebel, you are turned off and shut down. And that's the danger that Professor Richard Werner warns against. So, I think that's enough for today. I hope this has been of some interest to you. Thank you so much for listening. Please keep the questions and comments coming in so I will know what I need to address that is of interest to you. Okay? God bless. And please like, share, subscribe, and press the notification bell if you have truly enjoyed this. Okie dokes. Bye.